The condemnation of Kanye West is reaching fever pitch, intensifying after he was banned from Twitter for this anti-Semitic tweet, DEFCON 3 on Jewish people.
This vile act of anti-Semitism is something anyone with a brain could see coming.
West is not in hiding, seen out to dinner with a model who some believe is his new girlfriend.
You can't just say something that is so really hateful.
Yeah.
You just can't say that, and there's no accountability for that.
Actress Jamie Lee Curtis was outraged when she read the tweet.
I burst into tears. I woke up and burst into tears. DEFCON 3 on Jewish people?
Today, the world's richest man, Elon Musk, who is seeking to purchase Twitter, says he reached out to West, who now calls himself Ye. Talked to Ye today and expressed my concerns about his recent tweet, which I think he took to heart.
Just to follow up on that, it was announced earlier today that the rapper formerly known as Kanye West wants to buy the conservative social media platform Parler. And this comes after he was kicked off of Twitter and Instagram last week for his own set of anti-Semitic comments. Is the White House or the president concerned that should this sale go ahead and that Ye be allowed to buy this platform, that it would give him another venue for anti-Semitic comments, hateful comments, with no gatekeeper, no one to say that's wrong or anything like that?
So as you know, when it comes to these types of purchases or agreements, I can't speak to that. So that's not something, the actual, agreement or interaction, I can't speak to that. But what I can speak to is hateful rhetoric. What I can speak to is insulting rhetoric. What I can speak to is anti-Semitism, which is hateful, it is dangerous, and we are going to continue to condemn that type of language, because at the end of the day, it is disgusting, and there is no room, absolutely no room, no place in our political discourse to be having that type of really vile conversation or comments being made.
the Squirrel Hill neighborhood. That is a largely Jewish community, and it happened at the Tree of Life Synagogue. It is the largest conservative congregation in that area. It was actually formed more than 150 years ago, and in 2010, two Pittsburgh congregations merged to form the Tree of Life congregation. So this is a huge congregation. It happened during the 9:45 a.m. Shabbat. It is the most attended service of the entire week. We also know that from local media reports, up to 12 people were shot. We're hearing 8 are confirmed dead. 3 officers were also shot, and hearing that some officers who were responding to the scene were forced to even use their vehicles as a shield. We're hearing that the shooting happened in the basement of the synagogue, and people were found both in the atrium and in the basement. We heard from the former president of the synagogue that in the past, security had been an issue for them, and they were working with the Department of Homeland Security to try to find ways to secure exits and entrances. So there was a huge police response in that neighborhood while authorities were trying to ascertain whether or not there was only one gunman or if someone may have made it outside of the building. Heard just a little while ago that the shooting is now considered to be over, that the suspect surrendered, but it was a very chaotic time.
This is where the suspect's been living. We understand he moved in about 2 years ago. Residents here and other places where he's lived over the years pretty much all report the same thing, that he was unusually quiet, that he kept to himself, didn't mix it up with them very much, and that they are all stunned that he has been charged for these horrific murders. This morning, investigators are uncovering the motives of a killer. Alleged synagogue shooter Robert Bowers is not believed to have a prior criminal history, but social media posts attributed to him contain anti-Semitic views and other hate speech, and a final entry just before the shooting perhaps was an indicator of the deadly violence about to unfold. On the social networking site Gab, Bowers' profile page read, quote, "Screw your optics, I'm going in." The suspect repeatedly posted photos of guns, including these 3 handguns. It's unclear if they are the same 3 guns authorities say Bowers used to carry out the attack, along with an assault rifle. The 46-year-old lived at this apartment complex, which officials evacuated before checking the area for explosives.
We could hear the shots, and we were standing in our living room, and we could just hear, just rapid fire.
Online posts attributed to Bowers also revealed the suspect is not a supporter of the president, describing Mr. Trump as a globalist, not a nationalist, a word the president called himself recently. Local media reports say Bowers was raised by his mother, then grandparents when she died. Former neighbors saying he was thoughtful to call them if they left their garage door up. But authorities say responding police officers encountered a far different man.
Certainly, the actions this person took today were hateful. We're in the early stages of this investigation, and over the next several days and weeks, we will look at everything in the suspect's life, his home, his vehicle, his social media, and his movements over the last several days.
Congress freshman Representative Ilhan Omar, one of only 2 Muslim women serving in the House, has been a lightning rod for criticism, mostly stemming from what critics say are her anti-Semitic remarks. Well, last Friday, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy threatened to take action against Omar, just as he did against Representative Steve King for racially insensitive remarks. The journalist Glenn Greenwald of The Intercept criticized McCarthy for targeting Omar and fellow Muslim Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib's criticism of Israel. Well, last night, Omar weighed in with a tweet of her own. "It's all about the Benjamins, baby." That a reference to money, made famous in Puff Daddy's 1997 rap song. Then, in response to this tweet, would love to know who Representative Ilhan thinks is paying American politicians to be pro-Israel, Omar tweeted again. AIPAC, she said. That's the American Israeli Public Affairs Committee, which has often been accused by progressives of fomenting hatred of Iran. AIPAC responded in a tweet last night, "We are proud that we are engaged in the democratic process to strengthen the U.S.-Israel relationship. We will not be deterred in any way by ill-informed and illegitimate attacks on this important work." Another freshman Democrat, Max Rose of New York, tweeted that Omar's beliefs are deeply hurtful to Jews, including myself. Chelsea Clinton also offered an opinion. "We should expect all elected officials, regardless of party, and all public figures to not traffic in anti-Semitism." Judy Jasser, the president of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy, is now calling for Omar to be removed from all House committees, including the influential House Foreign Affairs Committee on which she serves. And the GOP House Jewish Coalition is asking House Speaker Nancy Pelosi to take action against Omar. Omar has been criticized for many other tweets, blaming the Covington Catholic kids for what she says was taunting 5 black men before they surrounded Native American Nathan Phillips and led racist chants. Now, all of that has been disproved. Omar has since deleted that tweet. Bill?
Thank you, Doug. Doug McKelvey, more to come on that. This is a Fox News Alert. Good evening. Welcome to Washington. I'm Brett Baer. Tonight, Democrats are trying to minimize the self-inflicted damage from comments viewed as anti-Semitic by one of their high-profile freshman lawmakers. We're also at this hour awaiting the sentencing of former Trump campaign chairman Paul Manafort. First, the Democrats and anti-Semitism. What was once thought to be an easy fix, a public resolution, has turned into a political football. And Republicans, and even some Democrats, are saying the Democrat leadership in the House is fumbling that football. Chief Congressional Correspondent Mike Emanuel starts us off tonight from Capitol Hill with a vote that just wrapped up. Good evening, Mike.
Brett, good evening to you. The vote was 407-23 with Iowa's Steve King voting present. But this has been an epic struggle all week. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi forced to defend one of her controversial and high-profile freshman members.
It's up to her to explain, but I do not believe that she understood the full weight of the words.
A reference to Minnesota Democrat Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, who suggested those who support Israel have dual loyalty, and that being opposed to Prime Minister Netanyahu and, quote, the occupation is not the same as being anti-Semitic. The anti-Semitic resolution noted that the House of Representatives condemns anti-Semitic acts and statements as hateful expressions of intolerance that are contradictory to the values that define the people of the United States. But after an internal battle among Democrats, the name of the resolution was changed to anti-hate and was broadened to include a wide range of bigotry victims: Jews, Muslims, Hindus, Sikhs, the LGBTQ community, immigrants, and others with verbal attacks, incitement, and violence.
We're sadly living in a time in this country where we're seeing a rise in anti-Semitism, a rise in Islamophobia, a rise in racism and bigotry.
Rallying to Omar's defense, some of her fellow high-profile freshmen. New York Democrat Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has been tweeting her defense of Omar to nearly 3.5 million followers. There seems to be no problem at all with a zero-tolerance stance for simply asking about U.S. foreign policy. And Michigan Democrat Rashida Tlaib went even further.
I can tell you, when she speaks about those issues, what I hear is her trying to uplift my grandmother in Palestine, in the West Bank, and saying that there are real, actual, factual evidence to show that there's human rights violations.
Republicans sounded stunned by the Civil War on the other side of the aisle.
There's a fracture, obviously, in the Democrat Party. There's a radical leftist fringe that's really intolerant, particularly towards our Jewish friends.
And now some Democrats are upset leadership caved.
And when one of our colleagues invokes the classic anti-Semitic tropes, the anti-Semitic language, that Jews control the world, that Jews care only about money, that Jews cannot be loyal Americans if they also support Israel, this too must be condemned.
Republicans say the shift to the left is shocking.
This is not your father's Democratic Party. If it was ever more obvious than today, I don't know when it was more obvious. They can't agree to condemn anti-Semitism.
Some sources suggest this signals possible trouble for Speaker Pelosi and her leadership team over the next 2 years when you consider this non-binding resolution was really quite a struggle this week. Brett?
Mike Emanuel live on the Hill. Mike, thanks.
Nays are 407. The nays are 23. Voting present, 1. 2/3 being in the affirmative, the rules are suspended. The resolution is agreed to, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Now, this next story should alarm everybody, and I mean everybody. Civil rights activists are now opposing the passage of a bill that equates criticism of Israeli policies with anti-Semitism in the state of South Carolina. The new bill would effectively deem any criticism of Israel in publicly funded schools and state colleges as anti-Semitic. Now, unable to pass it as a standalone law for the past 2 years over questions about its constitutionality, supporters of the measure used a legislative tactic known as a rider to insert it into the state's 2018-2019 budget. That's how they slide it in. And the measure will expire after 1 year. Now, supporters of Israel see the controversial bill as a triumph, arguing that any criticism of Israel is inherently anti-Semitic and should be banned on college campus. I have to be very careful with what I say here and how I say it. It's funny that those same criticisms don't apply to Russia and the mainstream media, is it not? Perhaps we should draft a bill banning the mainstream media, blaming Russia or Muslims for anything, and see how that flies. Where does it all end? I'm sorry, but nobody, and I mean nobody, should be beyond criticism if it's justified. You go back in ancient times, it was considered a capital offence to criticise kings or queens. Well, that never turned out too well, did it? Also in the 1400s through the 1800s, blasphemy to criticise or going against the church. Now that turned out horribly. People were burnt at the stake for not loving the all-powerful Roman Catholic Church. And that also applied to everyone with a science background in those days as well. But until Israel stops breaking every UN law, having already done so more times than the rest of the world combined, stops committing genocide in the Middle East, stops creating human rights issues, stops looting the American people of their tax money, and stops declaring every country that opposes them as a terrorist organisation, stops dictating American foreign policy via lobbyists and dual citizenship, or stops forcing countries to make laws to defend them, and stops thinking as a people that the rest of the world are just goyim, aka shit under their shoe, then the world has every right to complain about the political agenda these Zionists operating as the state known as Israel.
Will help stem that tide, and it sends a strong message to every other state in this nation to follow suit, to stem the tide of rising anti-Semitism. Let's oppose bigotry today. I ask you all to support this bill. Thank you. I'm pleased to report, Mr. Williams, that South Carolina seems to be behind the curve on the rising tide of anti-Semitism on campus, which I'm very grateful for.
Did you know also, and I'm a co-sponsor as well, but what I have seen up here from time to time is legislation that we create, legislation that we pass sometimes has unintended consequences. And so all I want to make sure of right now is that we are not going to ultimately pass something that has those unintended consequences. So again, even though I think I understand your position and I understand your answer, I just want to make sure that it's very clear. No one is going to be able to be charged under this legislation. Is that correct?
With anti-Semitism.
With anti-Semitism.
Or bigoted speech is protected under the Constitution. It doesn't change that. What happens is, if there is a breach of the law or of campus policy, the administrators on campus will then have this uniform definition to look back to apply the facts to, and to determine what the intent was that led to those acts.
The issues I have with this approach is, first of all, this bill does not state in the bill itself what that definition of anti-Semitism would be. It refers to a document that is published by the federal government.
What the intent is of maybe some criminal activity that's happening on campus does not infringe on any First Amendment rights. It does not affect the curriculum of what a professor wants to teach in class. This is aimed at combating all of the anti-Semitic incidences that we are seeing across the nation at an alarming rate. It really is an alarming rate. And specifically when we're dealing with college campuses. And we will be, if this passes the Senate, we will be the first state that will pass such legislation. Now, there are several other states that are pursuing this legislation, but we will be the first state. I know the Jewish Community Center here in Columbia, when the first incidents of some bomb threats and phone calls were made, our center here was one that was affected by that. And as we see nationwide, I mean, honestly, I just because we don't see the violent acts here in South Carolina doesn't mean that it's
There's no one official definition of anti-Semitism, no common standard to make it simple for researchers to calculate the percentage of people of a certain country, region, or religion who are anti-Semitic. That's because anti-Semitism is measured in perceptions, how people perceive Jews. The Anti-Defamation League, an organization that fights prejudice, is introducing what could become a global baseline measure of anti-Semitism. A survey of over 50,000 people in 96 languages in over 100 countries. It was shared exclusively with the Wall Street Journal. What's the headline? That about a quarter of the world's population holds views of Jewish people that are, by ADL standards, anti-Semitic. What's its standard? The ADL created a questionnaire of 11 anti-Semitic statements or stereotypes, including Jews have too much power in international financial markets, Jews have too much control over the global media, Jews still talk too much about what happened to them in the Holocaust, and people hate Jews because of the way Jews behave. Those who said at least 6 statements are probably true are considered by the ADL to harbor anti-Semitic attitudes. The ADL's index attempts to leave people's political views on Israeli politics out of its equation. So, based on this index, where is anti-Semitism most prevalent? The Middle East and North Africa region, where 74% of people surveyed held anti-Semitic views. In the West Bank and Gaza, 93%. Iraq, 92%. Iran got the lowest score in the region, 56%. One response in particular is likely to alarm Jewish leaders. Only 38% of people in this region have heard of the Holocaust. Of those who have heard about it, 22% agreed it's been described fairly by history. 63% think the Holocaust was a myth or exaggeration. What region is the least anti-Semitic? That would be the Americas, where less than 1 in 5 people overall hold anti-Semitic views. In the US, it's about 1 in 11. What about Europe? In Western Europe, the average score is 24%. But in Eastern Europe and Russia, anti-Semitic attitudes are 10% higher. How do Christians and Muslims worldwide compare? Nearly a quarter of Christians believed 6 or more of the survey statements. Muslims, around half. This is just a sampling of the trove of data in this study. But here's one last factoid. Of the people globally who believe a majority of the anti-Semitic stereotypes are probably true, the vast majority have never met a Jewish person.
Now, because of the same thing, they're trying to do the white supremacy here. They try to bring white guys here and to take the supremacy over Arabs, which are the local citizens, and over blacks, which are, so far, they're only the Ethiopian Jews. Now, what I'm trying also to say is that another question is why? Why America needs Israel? In Israel, there is no oil like in other Middle Eastern countries. There's nothing they can be attracted to. But why do they do all these things? Why do they invest money, bring white people and so on, when they build their system of white supremacy, just like in America they build in Israel? Why? And I can tell you why. Because the true Jews, according to the Bible, you can check it in the Bible, you can read Job 30:30 and some other places, they have never been white. They have been people of color. And they have not stopped in Ethiopia. They were in Ethiopia, Sudan, and they have settled in West Africa. From West Africa, they have been taken as slaves to America. Brothers and sisters, blacks of America, it's you. You are the true Hebrews. You are the true Hebrews from the Bible. America gonna do everything, gonna invest as much money as it has, gonna fight as much wars as they can, gonna invite as much weapons as they can, just to hide this away from you. Gonna take Israel, gonna bring white people here, and to tell you these are the Jews, gonna kill you, gonna kill Arabs, gonna mistreat white people like this guy, just to tell you this lie, that you are nobody and we are the Jews with all the history and so on. It has been deleted, your history. You don't know who you are. Don't forget about it. This is why America has been taking your history away, never to find out.
Yo, y'all ready? Look not upon me because I am black, because the sun hath looked upon me. Y'all following? That's not even one of my quotes. That's a song of Solomon's. The real one. The real one. The black Jew you got this whole spiel from. Are you getting me yet? Every white man that calls himself a Jew is guilty of identity theft. Ain't no comparison. This is not for you. You are not a Jew. Aaron is Aryan. I told y'all that.
Don't cheer for that shit.
I said this is not for you. You are not a Jew. Aaron is Aryan. I told y'all that culture vulture shit meant nothing. Yo! I told y'all that culture vulture shit meant nothing compared to a heritage. They stole everything. Now, I don't know how you were trained, but this the derailment. Every passenger burns. Considering what y'all stole from blacks, bah! We gonna let the steel blacker return.
Look, America has a history of 200 years of slavery. Mm-hmm. People aren't starting out on the same base in terms of their ability to succeed. And so we have got to recognize that and give people a lift up.
So you are for some type of
Yes, I am.
reparation? Okay.
Yes, I am.
There used to be an eccentric opinion. Suddenly, lots of people seem to have it, not just Kamala Harris. Today, just today, Senator Elizabeth Warren, maybe under the influence of peyote, said that she also supports reparations. So did Julian Castro. Just 2 years ago, keep in mind, Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton were both asked about this, and both said they opposed it. 5 years from now, we'll be tearing down statues for taking that position, but that's where we are today. Author and columnist Mark Steyn has been following this and joins us tonight. Seems like things are moving kind of fast, Mark.
Yeah, they are. And this is disturbing if reparations is becoming a mainstream position. It's particularly absurd, I think, for Elizabeth Warren to be in favor of that. This is someone who, in a sense, has benefited from a fake appropriation of racial grievance. As you know, the business about her being 1024th Native American, presumably, and yet presenting herself as Harvard Law School's first woman of color. That's what happens when you actually get into this sort of neo-apartheid of racial classification. And I find it particularly absurd. I mean, when Kamala Harris says people are not starting from the same point, slavery was abolished a century and a half ago. Nobody alive today has a grandparent who was a slave. And in that sense, I think you reach a point where, you know, you need to move on. I mean, the reparations thing eventually, as the decades go by, becomes ridiculous. I'm Canadian. I think you guys should give us reparations, because if you hadn't had the revolution, we'd have the whole continent would now be Canada. And if you were going to steal our land from us and drive the loyalists out, Tucker, you could at least have divided the continent east-west so that we Canadians weren't holed up in the coal bit.
Which half would you take?
Yeah, well, exactly. I think I'd have the half without the Californian presidential candidates in it,
I think that's right.
on balance, or maybe the bit in the middle, and you guys could have the two coasts. But the point here is this is nothing real. This is nothing real to the lived experience of people of all kinds of identities today. And certainly not to Kamala. Kamala Harris has a Jamaican father and an Indian mother. And I don't know whether it's the identity politics, as her father was suggesting earlier today. I don't know whether it's this whole identity politics obsession that means she has to feel she has to genuflect to this because her own experience is in fact entirely apart from the
Exactly.
African-American slave experience.
It's also bad, though. It's really divisive. Mark Stein, great to see you. Thank you for that. It is.
Thanks a lot, Tucker.
France is making $60 million available to survivors of the Holocaust who live in the United States and Israel. Those reparations date back to France under Nazi rule. At the time, the country's train company, SNCF, used these trains to deport 70,000 Jews to concentration camps. The U.S. worked with France to set up the fund. Those who were deported can file a claim at the State Department website for a piece of the $60 million. Survivors or their family members have to provide some sort of proof that their loved ones were deported.
There's a gap as wide as the Grand Canyon when it comes to the issue of how's that money going to be divided up, and that's what we need to do. We have a session now, and basically we're going to go in and tell them what our thoughts are, and if we come to a resolution, then tomorrow there'll be an announcement. If we don't, tomorrow there'll be a walkout. It's not going to be a show. They've shown a willingness to be totally inflexible, to potentially kill the deal, and to do a disservice to the survivor victims that they're supposed to care about. Mine is 9751. Right.
Aber sonst ist die ganze Gruppe praktisch im Konsens, bis auf die Osteuropäer. Und der Dissens war so hart, dass ich nicht glaube, dass jetzt innerhalb von 2 Stunden die zum Umkehren ihrer Positionen kommen.
Wir sollten eigentlich dann bei jedem
The survivors don't want to be moved to a home age or so on for some psychological reason, also because during the war or the concentration camps, when you were sick or you were okay, every now and then they evacuated and they killed all of them. So we want to be at home, but you need help at home because you don't have these families to help you. So that's why the home care is so important for us in the negotiation.
now, 60 years later, we're talking about some people who were relatively young then and now are very, very old, and they're hurting more than ever, and they need, interestingly, it's 60 years later, but they need now more than ever, they need help. And today, the significance of today really is that both the Claims Conference and the German government is acknowledging to the world, and especially to the German people, and that's why we're having it here, that the job isn't finished yet.
Today there are 500,000 survivors remaining, and our best estimates are that in the West, including the United States and Western Europe, that roughly a third are in or very close to the poverty line. In Central and Eastern Europe, former Soviet Union, almost 100% are in poverty. They desperately need home care so that someone can keep them out of institutions, give them medicines, take them to doctors, give them socialization benefits.
Wir versuchen gelegentlich dieses Gebäude mit Verantwortung bedeutet nicht Schuld. Verantwortung bedeutet Erinnerung, die Zukunft gewährleisten zu können.
Financed by the federal government and supported by the
Hey, y'all Jews? Yeah, we're Jews. Hey man, we fascinated with, you know, people who call themselves Jews, man. You know what I mean? So, hey, what makes you a Jew, man?
Yeah, I got it.
No, what makes you a Jew?
From my mother.
From your mother's side?
Yeah, the mother. I got it.
No, what makes you a Jew?
From my mother.
From your mother's side?
Yeah, the mother.
All right, hey. Jew, man. How are you a Jew? Explain. Go to Jeremiah 14:2 real quick. We'll explain Judah. Hurry up and grab it real quick. Go ahead.
Jeremiah 14:2. Judah mourneth.
Judah mourneth. Go ahead.
And the gates thereof language.
So what tribe are you from?
I'm from Levi.
From Levi? Levi. Well, Judah mourneth, and read it again for him.
Judah mourneth, and the gates thereof language.
You know who Judah is, right?
Yeah.
That's the what? The head tribe, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, the head tribe. Go ahead.
They are black unto the ground.
The prophecy said that they are black unto the ground.
And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not.
Is blasphemy a good thing or a bad thing? Okay, so the Lord said he know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not. Is that talking about us calling ourselves Jews, or is that talking about you?
I don't think it's, my opinion, it's not talking about us.
So it's talking about us then?
I don't know what it's talking about. That's first that's translated from Greek. It's not even our language.
Well,
it's English. There's only mistranslations.
You're
our
right,
Bible's
but
in Hebrew.
It's talking about you, man. We are the real Jews. The Negro in America is the real Judite. And everybody you see on that sign, they are the real people of who the world is.
What are you going to do with the Holocaust?
Huh?
What are you going to do with
the Holocaust was fake, man. That's the real Holocaust. Get them. That's the real Holocaust. That's Deuteronomy, the 28th chapter with the curses, man.
You know that never happened.
You don't fit one. You don't even know the scriptures, man.
Get your glasses. Fucking rat.
There you go. It was your people that was doing that. We the ones that was sold to our enemies. Who is our enemy? It's you. You're one of them, man.
That's right.
You know why? Because you're trying to be us, man. You're trying to impersonate us. We're the real Jews.
That's right.
We're the ones that walked through the Red Sea, man. Moses is a black man.
That's right.
Joshua would be considered a Puerto Rican today. So you're our enemy.
Have you heard of Edom in the Bible? Esau?
Yeah.
You know who he is?
We come from Jacob, yeah.
You come from Jacob?
Yeah.
So you come from Edom, man.
What?
Look at your red skin, man.
Hey, because we was dealing with prophecies. Now the prophecies of Edom said he was gonna come out red all over and hairy. I guarantee you pull back your thing. Pull back your thing.
He's hairy, man.
Look how hairy you are.
I'm black.
You fit that prophecy, but look at me. Look at my smooth skin. Look at his smooth. Look at that.
Look at that, smooth.
You fit the prophecies of Esau, and you're red.
Look at your nose, man. I'm just stating the facts. Hey, go ahead, bro. Lord got fire and jealousy coming towards your whole nation, man. I'm just telling you what the truth is. Because we're the prophets back here. We understand this book.
That's right.
Nobody else on this planet. The Lord blessed us with the understanding, not
That's
you.
Right.
We are the men that have been suffering in the past generation. Jeremiah, Ezekiel, Moses, Paul,
disciples.
We're the men. And y'all trying to impersonate us. Y'all trying to take the glory that the Lord bestowed upon us.
That's coming to Israel, right? That's coming to Israel real soon.
Okay. Hey, and by the way, I don't know where the hell you get that from because that's not scriptural, man. You're not supposed to have your head covered, man.
Right.
You prophesying stuff.
Okay. And we know you gotta go, man. You're a damn. Hey, we gonna tell you straight, man. You're the fucking devil, man.
Yeah, you're the
devil that the Bible speaks of, man.
Your real nationality, you're an Amalekite.
Yeah,
you're a tribe of the nation of Edom, an Amalekite.
That's who you are. And you go into slavery, man. You go into slavery, man. You are the head tribe of Edom, man. You're going down,
and
man.
Tell your little homie he's a fucking weenie.
Yeah.
He's a weenie. Stand to get him, Mark, on camera. Little weenie head